Welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, man, that's how you drink tea with your pinky up, homie. But man, how about them 49ers, bro? 5-0. You guys know me. I'm a 49ers fan. I've been waiting 30 years, basically, for a championship. And this just might be the year. Just let's stay healthy, homie. Anyways, man, as you guys know, we got the U.S. championship going on right now. So I do have the round 5 game for you guys, and it is between Wesley and Abhimanyu Mishra. As you guys probably have heard of Mishra, he's, you know, kind of one of the up-and-coming kids. He's only 14 years old right now, and he pretty much, like, broke all the records, like, ever. Like, fastest, like, I think FIDE Master, International Master, Grandmaster, like, USCF, everything. So, yeah, you know, he's, you know, a pretty crazy player. So, like I said, this is the round 5 game. All of my people coming from the Philippines, I will say mabuhay to you. Kamusta na aking makaibigan. Maraming salamat po sa nanonood aking mga video. Hello ulit. Masaya ko makita kay muli. I appreciate you guys very much for stopping by. And Mishra is from New Jersey. What up, bruh? Anyways, man, if you guys are ready to go, let's take a look and see what we got for this game, son. So we got the move E4, C5. This is by far the heaviest way to play if you are playing against E4 is to play the Sicilian. It is definitely out of Black's choices immediately the most aggressive because you're basically like, I'm unbalancing the game, man. I'm just going to be fighting you basically the entire time. And so there is a lot of ideas and understanding that you have to know and theory as well. So we do see knight to F3, the most common reply when you see the Sicilian. We got D6. So these are all very, very standard moves. If you ever played E4 and you play against a Sicilian, you literally have seen this at some point. It pretty much at any level. We got D4, pawn takes D4, knight takes D4, knight goes to F6. We got knight to C3, and then we do have the Najdorf Sicilian, the most famous chess opening in chess ever. And, you know, we have actually, this is actually a critical point because, I mean, there really is kind of everything that white can play in this position. Pretty much every single move has been tried. In this particular position, there's at least about 16 or 17, like, you know, somewhat played moves. I think with the 17th one being like 70 or 80 times it's been played in actual competition. So as you can imagine, there are not a lot of positions that you get into where there are that many moves that you have the option to play because usually they're a little more forcing. You know, you might have like 4 or 5, maybe even 6 moves that you can legitimately play before you just like, you know, kind of just get like demolished or whatever. And so this opening is very forgiving from the white side. So we got the move bishop to C4, and this is the 4th most played move. You know, it's pretty logical. I mean, this is pretty much like fundamental, you know, chess opening. Basically, like, you know, you want to put this bishop on this diagonal. You know, you want to pressure this F7 point because as you guys can see, the king is the only one defending it at the moment. The only thing about it is, you know, Black has a very, very good way of being able to try to blunt this bishop, and that is what we see in the game, and it is the move E6. And this is a definite idea in a majority of Sicilian defenses. I mean, there's just Sveningen. And that's basically what we have right now, kind of like a transposition into that. You know, you basically just adopt this kind of small center thing, and you're trying to take this D5 square away from the knight. You're trying to blunt, you know, these pieces. But I will say that you do kind of have to be careful, simply because there are sometimes sacrifices on this square, especially if you play knight B to D7, not necessarily here, but if you do that, you are blocking the bishop on C8 from being able to protect that point. So I will illustrate kind of, you know, something in a minute. We do see the move bishop to E3, very like common move that we see. And then the main idea of the Najdorf and Sicilians in general, that A6 and B5 push. You know, like I said, it's aggressive. You know, you're trying to push white's pieces back. You know, white can get their pieces on ideal squares, and you're trying to get their pieces off of the ideal squares. So, you know, you have bishop coming back to B3. Now, bishop to D3 was an option. It is better to keep it on this diagonal for those sacrifice purposes. And you are actually not hanging a pawn. We do see bishop to E7 in the actual game itself, though. So, you know, Wesley so kind of like baits, you know, Mishra real quick and he doesn't fall for it. But let's say you know, one of the main ideas, like I said, is to push b4, inconvenience this knight right here. And, you know, sometimes you can win a free pawn. But in this particular position, you actually don't win a free pawn. And this is where the sacrifices come into play. You would see knight to a4, which does seem like it hangs e4. But after the knight takes e4, you got knight taking e6, bishop taking e6. And then the very, very accurate bishop to d5. And one of the main things that you do have to pay attention to if you are playing from the black side when you're playing Sicilians is opening that diagonal to the rook that's completely undefended here on a8 too soon can definitely come back to bite you, you know, grabbing pawns and stuff like that in the center of the board. So, you know, you have a fork at the moment, and even after bishop takes, you still have that fork with the queen. So, you know, black is, you know, they have to play super duper accurately. So that is what you can, you know, it's just an example of what you can possibly see. But like I said, we do see the move bishop d7. We got the move a3 because, you know, now we're like, hey, man, we don't really want b4 to come in and inconvenience us. You know, black is getting really close to castling. So we do see castles by black. We got queen up to e2, all very standard stuff. Bishop to b7. We got the move f3. And this is one of the most common ways to defend this pawn chain. A majority of the time, white does castle queenside. Sometimes you do see kingside castling, but, you know, you castle queenside a majority of the time. So, you know, moving your kingside pawns is actually something very legitimate, and f3 just, you know, gives a really good defense on the e4 point, and doesn't require you to protect e4 with pieces. So we do see the move knight to c6. We got castles by white. We got the move knight to a5. And you kind of have an option here in this situation. We do see Wesley so say, bro, I'm just going to go ahead and go all in for the attack. But if you're really, really partial to your bishops and you really are thinking, okay, the end game, I want to have double bishops. I mean, you can definitely move this bishop back to a2. And I mean, you definitely have the option of doing that if you just want to preserve your bishop. But there is a big super reason why the knight is going to a5, and I'll touch on that a little bit in a second. But like I said, we do see knight to a5, and Wesley Soldier says, bro, you could tab the bishop if you want. I'm going to go all in on this attack. Also, a little nugget too is, if the knight does take here and this knight does take back here, you know, that actually gives a lot of security to the king for him to have, you know, or for them to have two knights right in front of the king defending everything. It is a very, very secure defensive structure for white to have against the Sicilian defense. Najdorf. We do see the rook going over to c8. We got king over to b1. Knight goes back to d7. And you see that black is starting to try to transfer their pieces to the queen side because, of course, that's where white's king is. So we do see h4. We got to go in and get this attack rolling. So the rook does take on c3. This might look kind of strange, but this is a very common idea in Sicilians. You see it more often in a dragon situation, but you can't see it here too. It's just a really big idea. You're just basically just giving up the rook to just completely shatter white's structure. And sometimes it can be kind of hard for players to defend those situations. It really depends on kind of like, you know, how white and black plays the game from then on out. We do see pawn taking c3, of course, only move. And then we have knight to b6. And this is where that idea I was talking about before comes into play. One of the major things that you are doing when you do play this a6, b5 situation when you're on the black side is you want to utilize this c4 square. And, you know, sometimes you have a queen to c7, you got rook over to c8. So you have so much pressure down this file, and this knight from this particular square, especially with this broken type of structure, you know, you are hitting a lot of different weak points. And if you can get this bishop free and maybe this queen in the game somewhere on one of these dark squares, you are greatly pressuring white, and you're justifying the fact that you sacrificed this rook. We do see the move h5. You can either sit there and do nothing, or you can go in on an attack. We do see the knight coming to c4, like I said, the idea. And we kind of can't allow that knight to just sit there forever. And the other knight is, you know, prepared to replace it. So we do see bishop taking c4, knight taking c4, and then we see one of the very common defensive ideas, and that is bishop back to c1. You know, you see this sometimes when you're playing from the black side, like if you've castled over here, and, you know, you got the move h6 played. Sometimes you'll see rook to e8 and bishop back to f8, and it's a similar idea, just flipped. You know, it is a very good defensive type of move. And, I mean, this is definitely a point that you want to defend right here because it's one of the only pawns in front of your king. We do see the move d5. Now, this is opening up attacks, like I said, on this pawn, double attacking it. So you have to act really fast. So we do see pawn taking d5, pawn taking d5, and then the king does go to a2, and it is trying to defend all of their weak points. And then we do see the bishop going to d6. And instead of you know, guessing the actual move that's coming up, I do want you to stop and try to guess what is the idea that black has in mind for them going and moving to bishop to d6. It is a move, but it's also kind of like a little bit of a deeper idea that I'm looking for. So if you want to pause the video and try to figure out why black has made this bishop to d6 move, go ahead and do so. All right, cool. So I kind of have been giving you hints up to this point as to like why, you know, black, you know, is trying to do some of the things they're doing. I was telling you about, okay, trying to get this knight down in here to c4. It's a very, very good outpost. Not only, I mean, that, but you have double pawns for white right here. So, I mean, you know, you're in a situation where you want to blockade, but then you also want to attack. You got this knight coming up here, this bishop coming up here, even when it was back here on e7. What is black really kind of hoping to get in? One of the moves. That move is queen to a5. The problem is, of course, in this position right here, you can't just go off playing queen to a5 because then you hang the bishop on e7. So that is the exact reason why it's, you know, that you just make this little subtle bishop to d6 move. Now the bishop is not attacked by the queen anymore, and you do have the possibility of playing this queen to a5, and you're just maximizing all the pressure you have on a3. And that is why in this particular situation, we see Wesley So go knight to b3, because he understands that. He says, okay, you move bishop to d6, you're wanting to try to go queen to a5, which is definitely an idea. Okay, well, let me just stop that in its tracks. And now what do you do as black? You don't want to go this and this, and because you're just going to close the situation down, and that's what white wants. So it's very subtle. It's all these little positional things that you got going on. We do see rook to e8. And I mean, you know, we're just attacking the queen because why not? The queen goes to f2. We got the move h6. And, you know, the thing about this particular move is it's actually a mistake. And the reason why it's a mistake is because one of the main ideas that white has had in the position, like since some moves ago, is to actually push f4, g5, and just continue to start steamrolling on the queen side, on the king side. The problem with h6 is it really allows white to just get everything that they want, and you have given white now a hook that they can hook onto and try to rip your position open. And that is what you somewhat see coming up. We do see the rook h to g1. g5 was actually possible in that position already, but rook to g1 is definitely not bad, just over preparing the push. We do see bishop to e5, and this is just kind of trying to counterattack this pawn on c3. The crazy thing is the pawn really doesn't matter. It's not an important pawn in the position, so you can actually give it away and just simply go g5 immediately. But we do see rook to d3 just defending. Yes, so we do see bishop to f6. Now, it might seem like, okay, I've redirected my bishop. Now I'm kind of defending the situation. But the problem is, you know, white is still able to just steamroll forward regardless of what you just got done doing. Like, you really didn't just stop the situation anyway. You have all of these pieces trained on g5. You also have this f4 push coming. So Wesley So was like, oh, I can just still do what I wanted to do anyway. And that is pushing f4. And there is no way to stop the move g5. And the problem is you have pieces that are going to get attacked. You have pawns that are going to get attacked. And you can see right now, I mean, that, you know, things can really start to get open really, really quickly. So we see the move knight to d6. Now, there's something that I want you to notice. I'm not sure if you felt it, but what you should notice and what you should be feeling right now is that black is starting to get into a defensive position. They've abandoned their attack that they had going on. You know, they made all of this work. They made all this effort to get their knight into c4. They had their bishop down here attacking. They were trying to get their queen in. And now what they've done is they've completely abandoned, you know, all of that stuff. And they're just shifting straight into defense. So you can see from that, and you can feel if you're playing the game, that the initiative has completely shifted into white's favor now. And black is just simply playing a defensive game at this point because they have to defend all these threats. We do see the move g5. We got pawn taking g5, pawn taking g5. And this is exactly what you want. You started to kind of open some lines. You know, you have possible pawn pushes coming in, opening some more lines. And then kind of what are you doing? Like, what are you doing with your bishop? So your bishop redirected to try to stop this, but it didn't stop it. So now you're just kind of just, you know, like you didn't really do anything with your bishop. So the bishop does come down to e5. And The important thing in this situation now is, like I mentioned before, you were kind of worried about queen a5 coming in and the knight being there and the bishop. Now, if you notice, black doesn't have any of their pieces trained on really any of your points as white. They are completely on the defensive. So now, knight being on b3, serving the purpose of preventing queen to a5, you're not really worried about queen to a5 anymore. So you're like, bruh, now I have the ability to start moving my knight, getting my bishop into the game, and just maximizing my attack on the king side. So that is why you see the move knight to c5. Also, something that's kind of subtle that you're thinking about as well is the fact that you are up in exchange. Trades are going to benefit you. And then also, you know, why not try to get rid of black's double bishops? Because that is definitely one of their strengths at the moment. So you move knight to c5, and there's really not a good way to defend, to try to preserve the bishop, because the attack is just coming too strong for white. So the queen just goes to e7. We see the move g6, asking black, what does it want to do? We close the position down with f6. We got knight taking b7, so now white has secured the double bishops. The queen takes on b7. We got bishop to b2, which it was definitely one of the good moves. A crazy explosive move was actually queen to f3. And you are double attacking immediately the pawn, but then you're also improving and moving the queen a little bit further up, especially trying to go to the queen to h5. After knight to e4, you would see h6. And like I said, you have opened up the queen to come here. And you can see this is not the happiest black king in the world. But like I said, we do see bishop to b2. We got knight down to e4. Queen goes over to h4. We see the move a5. Black is desperately trying to get something rolling, you know, on that queen side. But the problem is there's no black pieces over there, like I mentioned before. You know, this knight is defending, this bishop is defending, this rook is over here. Like, the queen is literally over here by themselves, so you can't checkmate black with just one piece. So we do see h6, and like I said, I mean, white is just completely rolling forward. We got the move f5, trying desperately to keep things closed, but we rip it open. Pawn takes g7, bishop takes g7. Queen goes to h7 with check, moving the king over to f8. We got the rook over to f1, and so you see that white is continuously placing bad threats on black, and they are progressing and moving forward. We do see the knight back to d6, hoping to defend. We got the move c4, offering another trade of bishops. We do see pawn taking c4, bishop taking g7 with check, queen taking g7. And we actually don't have to do anything with our queen, simply because, I mean, queen taking, you know, on h7 just allows us to take, and then we're targeting all these different pawns. So we do see a rook taking d5, just grabbing our material equality back. But the most important thing is white is completely up an entire exchange, literally for nothing. We do see rook down to e6, and this is where it gets really dicey and interesting. The rook d takes f5 with check, just planning to give up the exchange, but you get a lot in return. Knight takes f5, rook takes f5 with check, the rook goes to f6, and the very, very important move by far is queen to h4. Now, the idea that white has in mind is the fact that you really are kind of tied down because queen to d8 is checkmate in one. So you don't really have a whole lot of options as far as moving. So the queen is x-raying through to make sure that that is going to be a checkmate. So black recognizing that is like, hey man, let me try to move away a little bit. Well, the problem is this actually doesn't like put away that threat. White, understanding what the actual threat is just saying, hey, I'll redirect my queen another way, because you can also maintain that threat from this d4 square. And that's what you see, you know, that's the maneuver that you see from Wesley. So you see queen going to e4 first with check, king going back to f8, and then queen to d4. You notice that as long as you understand this idea of mate on d8, you know you can get it from h4 or you can get it from d4. So you just maintain that. Also, you're pinning the rook down in this particular situation. The king does go to e7. The rook goes to e5, and it is actually in this position that Mishra does resign the game. Now, you're resigning the game because, like I mentioned before, there is this threat of mate here on d8. So if the king goes back to f8, that's automatically mate. But what you also have, the only way to prevent mate is going to be this variation right here. You have to cover with e6, but the problem is you have a discovered attack. Like I said, x-raying through to the queen. Rook takes e6, king takes e6, queen takes g7, and I think you guys can see that you can't win this, bro, as black. So I appreciate you guys very much. This was a really nice kind of grinding down, attacking game. I appreciate you guys very much for stopping by. Meron salamat. And I'll see you guys next time.